Hello everyone, I'm back with another tool, and this time I made this tool because I had a problem in a real shot. So there was some wire hanging down from a wall and I had to do some cleanup. And my cleanup I used a vector blur on. So what happens with a vector blur is when something thin moves very fast, it will decrease in opacity and invisibility. But on the plate reference, the item actually kept its brightness even through the motion blur. So I had to come up with some solution because the camera was very complex. You see there's a lot of motion in this. This is the real production camera. A lot of motion in this, and to keyframe the brightness by hand would just be painful. So I created some solution for this. And this is this grade by motion node. So what this will do, it will connect to the camera. So let's just put in the name of the camera label, cam2, hit enter, and now there will be a connection. And what that node does is it looks at the camera and it will compare two frames and then make basically a motion blur assumption. And this will result in a curve. So every frame, depending on how strong the motion blur is, you will see the curve changes based on the motion blur. So what I can do with this is I can link this output curve to a grade node that automatically grades my structure based on the motion blur so that it will keep its brightness. As you notice though, the output curve is above 1 and I would love to have this number between 0 and 1. So what I did here is this button, and that will find the one frame in the entire camera animation with the highest motion blur number. So once you click on that, you will jump to that frame, and what we can do then is you just multiply down until you get a number that is almost 1 but not 1. And now we basically have our motion blur normalized almost to 1. So then I can bake this curve so that I get it into keyframes, and now it's not that heavy anymore. So let's look at a frame without motion blur. We have a brightness of almost 1 or 8.9, let's say 0.9. And now with motion blur, we get a brightness of 0.6. So let's gain that up until we get 0.9 again. And last thing to do is I can now link this curve to my mix. And now my grade node will do its thing based on the motion blur value. So here you see the mix is almost 0, so we get the almost original number again. And as the motion blur increases, so does the grade. And that helped me to fix that problem. Also what we have here is a drop down with different options. So next frame just means that the calculation is based on the current frame and the next frame. That means though that your motion blur calculation is slightly incorrect. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it matters that much depending on how crazy your camera is. Then we have previous frame, which does the opposite. So it takes the current frame, the previous frame. And then we have this frame, which will calculate the previous frame and the next frame and average them. So this is the most accurate result. The problem is though on frame 1, and so the first frame and the last frame, you will have incorrect values here. So you need one frame, one additional keyframe in the end and one additional keyframe in the front to counter this. Yeah, and that's it. I hope you like it and it helps you.